Welcome everyone to this month's exchange session, specifically focusing on process mining for HR workflows. And a very specific topic this session is where we could use process mining to identify where we can use some of the out-of-the-box AI agents that we have for HR workflows. So it's really one of those great use cases where the process intelligence really directs us to where we can use automation and specifically AI. It's been one of those questions I keep getting all the time lately. All right, so let's get started. We like to start with this quote with process mining: do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. This aligns very elegantly to what the outcomes of process mining allows us to do. It gives us the intelligence to know what we should do, so we can take effective action. Before we get started, I need to share this one safe harbor slide. I'm sure you've seen it many times, right? This ensures that anything we do and say about roadmap items we may discuss, please make no buying decisions based on that. All right, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We've saved some time for Q&A. Please use the Q&A within the Zoom webinar. We have some folks on the call that can also help answer those, and we can save some time toward the end to answer some live as well. This will be recorded, and we'll share that afterward. And there will be a short survey after the event as well. Who are your hosts today? Well, I'm one of them, Damien Pascal. I'm one of the outbound product managers focusing on process mining. I am joined today by my special guest, Rue Adams. Rue, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure, Damien, thanks. Yeah, I'm Rue Adams. I'm an outbound product manager in our HR workflows team. We typically, focus on, the basic HR workflows and capabilities. But I myself focus as well on process mining, and I'm happy to be here supporting Damien and all of you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rue. All right. Um, so what is this session for, right? This is part of the ServiceNow Exchange. We've rebranded from the Live and ServiceNow. If you like these sessions, you can easily sign up for and see the schedule using that QR code you see on the screen. So easily screenshot or take a quick picture of that using your mobile device to be able to register and attend other ones like this one. All right. Um, we are part of a larger team from the process mining perspective. We have both, and I have some of those folks on the call today, both from the product management as well as product success, that help support our customers before and even after they acquire the capability. We also have folks who focus on task mining, which we're not going to focus on today's session, but certainly another vector of how process intelligence becomes really important as well. All right, let's talk about the agenda. I always like to go into some of the process mining basics for the folks who have not seen this before. And I have, just looking at the list, I think we do have some folks I don't recognize. That's fantastic. We'd love to share the information on how this could help those teams understand how their work is actually working so they can improve upon them. Once we go through that, we'll deep dive into how process mining can help HR workflows. We will go into some basics on the outcomes of HR service delivery, and where process mining fits. Right, process mining is a platform capability. One of the great attributes of process mining, and as a platform capability, it can help connect the dots between different workflows, and HR is certainly one of them. We'll then go into a demo, which I'll go through a couple different use cases. And then we'll end with a Q&A, and make sure we wrap up and answer all the questions you may have, and then end with some tips and resources that you can follow up on very easily. All right. So what is process mining? In everything we do and build, there's an outcome that we plan for. Whether it's something as simple as a meeting we've planned for, or it could be, hey, I have specific outcomes for how we onboard an employee. There's a design path that we expect and want, and we measure that outcome. The reality of those things may not represent what we want or expect, sometimes for very good reasons, sometimes for not the best reasons. But we need to know about it so we can take action. And that's where process mining becomes really important. We can do this in a very elegant fashion. Why? Well, every customer has that data already in their platform, in their instance, because we have those timestamps, the event logs, and how things actually occur. So we can detect how that design path is actually working, give you that discovered process map in minutes. This is typically very hard to do if you don't have this. I've seen customers do this in lots of different ways, spreadsheets and highlighters. They get teams of people in a room to try to figure out, well, where and who is holding on to a piece of work the longest. Very hard to do. It takes usually weeks, months to get that done, and a lot of effort. Um, I often get questioned, hey, Damien, who is this for? Do I need to hire a data scientist? The answer is no, not at all. This is meant to democratize the ability to have that continued conversation with your data. It's for the process owners, the process analysts. If you're an operational leader that looks at a dashboard on a daily or a weekly basis to understand how you're operating, this is for you. This is meant to be that continued conversation you're already having with your data. If you have within your organization process improvement teams or excellence teams, this is another great tool for them as well, right? This gives me a data-driven way to help and understand where we have gaps, whether it be a velocity issue, a quality issue, or a compliance issue. This exposes that in a data-driven way. I often get questioned, hey, Damien, how does this compared to what we're already doing in our dashboards and analytics? And it's a fair question. Analytics tells me, what is happening, not why, right? Did we meet our SLA? How did we perform? How many cases did we close last quarter, right? How many times did we breach our SLAs? All those questions that we measure in dashboards, right? Those dashboards tell us, what's happening. It doesn't tell us why. Once I start looking at a KPI that I care about, maybe it's that ESAT, maybe it's that average time to close in my weekly, it's trending the wrong way. The first question I'm going to ask, typically, whether it's for myself or even for my leadership, is why is that happening? Why is it trending the wrong way? The follow-up question to that is, what are you going to do about it, right? So, doing that investigation becomes difficult without process mining. And this is where the value of process mining becomes really, really super important, where we can start answering questions that are not answered in that dashboard. Where is our process stuck? Who's holding on to a piece of work? Where do we have reassignment of work? Is there an approval that's slowing us down, right? Are we conforming to our process principles? So, having that visibility to detect things that are not representative of what I need as a process owner, this gives me the evidence, right? And of why, where it's happening and also what's causing it as well. And we'll go through some of the detail here. So that's really that, again, going back to that continued conversation, right? We start with what's happening, detect, and then we start to analyze with process mining. And this is why we say that process mining is the why behind any KPI. Understanding the velocity, the quality, the compliance of how any workflow transitions from start to finish, whether it's a single workflow, and you can see an example here on the right-hand side, which I'll show you live as well, of what we call a multidimensional workflow, where we have up and downstream tasks that impact my primary workflow because I'm dependent on those other teams or workflows to get my workflow done in a timely, compliant way. So where does this fit? How do I start using process mining within my organization? Well, it comes down to you're probably already doing some of this today, right? You're detecting through analytics and SLA notifications, dashboarding, right? Process mining fits very elegantly in the analyze and in the analyze phase, where we can start understanding the process itself, visualizing it, right? That's important. But on top of that, we're also getting the ability to investigate, right? I want to understand why it's behaving the way it is. And we give you investigative tools to give you that evidence, things like bottleneck analysis, root cause analysis, using machine learning to look at the unstructured data that lives in work notes, right? So giving me that data that I need to know so I can take effective action. Once we create that pipeline of improvement, we identify the issue, we know the reason why it's happening, then we can build that improvement. In this webinar, we're going to talk about some of those outcomes of being AI agents, but perhaps it could be other things. And I'll show you an example of where we can create playbooks dynamically right from process mining to give you an effective way of dealing with a difficult workflow, right? But it could be other things. It could be, an RPA bot or a virtual agent. And it could be, hey, we need to train a team too, and we can manage that through coaching loops. Lastly, we're going to monitor this through performance analytics and be able to manage this through continual improvement management or even automation center. So this should be a closed loop, continual improvement process that will happen over time. I often get this questions like, hey, Damien, do we just need to do this one time? The answer is absolutely not. This should be in a continual improvement because we all know this. The process you have today was not the same as you had over the past number of years. Why? Because, organizations evolve, laws change, business objectives change, right? To be able to deal with a given outcome, we need to ensure that the process we have today is still efficient based on the business requirements. I did want to surface some common use cases just to get the creative juices flowing within everyone who's attending today. Just to think about what process mining can solve for. And it's not an exhaustive list, but this is a list we run into all the time. Uh, Things like where's work being held on hold, right? And give me the reason. Where work is being reassigned and multi-hopping between different assignment groups, right? I need to know why work is being reassigned more than 2 or 3 times, where it's slowing down my velocity. I need to know where work is being reopened and rejected, right? And where it's happening and why. So lots of great use cases where we can help customers understand where they have friction points within their workflows. Could be something as simple as, hey, we have approvals that are slowing us down. That's really causing our ability to close a workflow effectively because that approval is taking us more than a day. I need to know when it happens, where it's happening, and why. That last one is another great one that I see a lot of, especially in the age of generative AI and AI agents, right? I need to know and understand where there's automation opportunities, where I can drive perhaps more self-service or automate using some of the more advanced capabilities like AI agents. And this is the one we're going to focus on today. Rue, I'm going to hand it over to you for the next bit.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Damien. Before I get started, I just want to follow up on Damien's previous slide, which is it wasn't so long ago I was talking to a customer, and we were talking about, hey, how long does it take me to get a case and get it rolling? And we ran a process mining project with them and found out they were triaging the same case 3 times before it was getting assigned. So they almost in a day they found out they could save days and days of work time. So process mining is great for all of those use cases that Damien was talking about earlier. So yeah, I just want to quickly cover HR service delivery kind of in a very high level way. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, maybe you're a process miner and you're just interested in how it applies to HR, or you're just thinking about getting the HR product and what you can do with it before you start running process mining projects. So we find that there are some pretty standard objectives for most of our customers. You may have others, or yours may vary slightly, but there are sort of three primary process HR objectives. So the first is obviously we want to optimize the service delivery to our employees. We want to do faster and better case resolution. That's really a great place for process mining as well, because that's what it's all about, is being faster and better with our cases. So you also want to improve your experience for both your new employees who are coming on to the into the company, as well as your existing employees who have a little more tenure. You want to make sure that their day-to-day life, work life is much better, and that's what HR service delivery can help. And then you also want to have more productivity, right? You want to make employees get their work done faster, and not be sitting there waiting for responses from the HR team, because they have cases and they can't move forward until they get something resolved. So giving them some self-service opportunities, really understanding what they're looking for and what they're trying to accomplish, and then being able to more quickly provide that answer. So those are some basic objectives. Can we move to the next slide? Capabilities. So what does HRSD do? Well, we have capabilities sort of across the employee life cycle, all the way from capabilities that help you with the hiring process, getting new employees identified and brought into the company, to like interview management and journey designer. I think we're talking a little bit today. I think there's part of the demo will be around our journey designer, HR lifecycle processes for onboarding. So, you want to get employees in, you want to get them in efficiently, you want to get them started. And then you go to, hey, I'm an employee. So now I'm here. What capabilities does HR bring? And so case and knowledge management, getting me the right information, allowing me to ask questions and get answers. The manager hub capability allows managers to more efficiently manage their employees and their employee needs, and identify where employees are at throughout their career. And then the agent workspace, obviously, for HR agents to more quickly work on and resolve cases. Those are sort of the self-service. And then we've got, of course, talent development and grow and career growth capabilities around talent development and helping employees set goals, understanding what their skills are, talking about them, where they want to go, what they want to achieve, and then being able to give feedback around that, and really helping employees evolve through their career. And then lastly, employees are going to offboard, right? They're going to leave the company, and we want to have a nice alumni experience for them, so that if they ever want to come back, or they're kind of your champions out into the world. It's good to have an alumni service center experience. So that's the employee life cycle, and those are all capabilities that help employees through the HR service delivery products. Next slide. And so HR service delivery, there are outcomes, right? To get to those objectives, you need outcomes. So what are the things you're trying to accomplish? Well, obviously, a reduced number of HR cases to begin with is always helpful. A reduced number of escalated HR cases. I'm not going to read all of these. You'll have the recording, but you're really trying to do things in a better, more efficient way to support your employees. You may have great processes already defined. Um, do you know that you're actually achieving the goals? And that's where process mining and some of the demo we're going to do today will show you, like, hey, you can find out. If you're not sure or you think something is happening, you can actually prove what's actually happening. And that's the great benefit of process mining. I've been talking to a lot of customers lately who are like, we don't know if we are getting enough value out of our HR service delivery product. Process mining will literally tell you like how many hours you can save if you improve some processes, if you resolve your cases of any certain type faster and better and more efficiently, if you bring in more automation through AI, how much time and effort do you save? So these are all outcomes that real companies are trying to achieve every day, companies just like yours.
Right. It's interesting, Rue, just looking at, especially the last slide before this, I see lots of different teams that work on the same outcome, right? And this is where, in my opinion, the value of process becomes even more important, right? Being able to reduce that friction between the different teams, making sure that the process is working as we expect, right? And we help those different teams get the work done more effectively, right? And that's really the goal of what process mining gives us. So let's focus on a few different areas where process mining makes sense here. Why does it matter for HR workflows? Well, at the very surface, we're going to help visualize that end-to-end service delivery within your platform, right? And and I always get this question, hey, Damien, what if we've customized our or onboarding or our case management, and that's okay. In fact, process mining can help determine was that customization, because the customization we have, is it valuable, right? Is it working the way we want it? So we absolutely support customizations and configuration of these workflows. It really does not matter. We help identify some of those bottlenecks that could be occurring, right? Minimizing steps that you may not need, right? Identifying where they're providing, some friction. It could also be used, and this is a very common use case I see with customers that they don't know what they don't know. Like I think I might have a hypothesis that this one type of case is becoming a problem for us, but I don't have anything to back it up, right? We could use process mining to easily understand if that hypothesis is valid or not, right? So a great way to provide that data-driven way of understanding where there's an issue. And one of the key things we have within the process mining capability is to be able to detect improvement opportunities as well. And that's really a great value to accelerate where we can improve. And we have a couple of different types. We have automated, and I'll go show you a couple of examples of that in a demo, and rule-based ones. The automated ones are very simple, right? They're pattern-based, things like ping-ponging. If there's a slow transition, there's a rework. You can see the different, this is actually part of our guided setup, so it gives examples. And they're purely pattern-based detection on the activity we care about. Maybe it's the state of the HR case. Maybe it's the assignment group. Maybe it's the category. You get to decide what you care about detecting. The other kind is rule-based, very, very programmatic. Maybe I want to know when my priority one HR case is not work in progress within an hour, right? As an example. Maybe there's very specific things I want to detect based on time or how they transition from one activity to another. And that's a great way to determine if a hypothesis or a specific thing you're looking to improve within your organization could be surfaced, and as well as the impact of it as well. And by the way, in that, just going back to this for a second, we do include some out-of-the-box capabilities for improvement detectors as part of content packs that we include for HR service delivery. Right? It's within the ServiceNow store. You can easily add those on. They're meant to be starting points. You can easily adjust and add more based on your requirements. They're super simple to build. So as we start talking about further improvement opportunities and automation opportunities within your organization, uh, every customer I've talked to, they're on a journey of where their AI journeys are within their maturation, right? And process mining is certainly should be part of that as well. It is can and should be part of the entire journey of where AI agents are deployed, measured, and even governed. So going back to my earlier slide about you can use process mining to detect where there are automation opportunities, and we do have techniques to help you find where AI agents should be deployed. Now, we're going to go through a few today. Once you deploy them, we can also use process mining to understand their impact. Did we deploy them in a efficient manner, right? Are they operating the way we want, the way we want them to? Because guess what? They need care and feeding as well. And lastly, with AI Control Tower within the ServiceNow platform, we also have the ability of understanding that governance, being able to streamline that as well. So again, because process mining is a platform capability, it gives us a great way to fully understand the entire lifecycle of where and how AI agents should be deployed and how they're measured. All right, let's get into a couple of the use cases that I'll demo in a few minutes. The first one is one of the out-of-the-box AI agents that we have for HR service delivery, which is resolve non-critical HR cases. And to me, this is an interesting one where, if we have lower priority HR cases that are perhaps taking a long time, our teams are very busy. They're dealing with the critical ones. They're deprioritizing the ones that are not critical. And this could be impacting our ESAT. This could be impacting HR agent productivity. We'd love to deploy this, but I need some data to back up where and why we should, right? And this could be a great way to determine that, yes, this is something we should deploy and in an effective manner, right? So if I can easily find that, hey, we have 121 years of time of inefficiency because of our non-critical HR cases, then yeah, we found a good answer for that, right? So I'll show you a couple techniques for that as well, and using some of the investigative tools like work node analysis and cluster analysis to give me the evidence of, well, what kind of cases are these, right? Or medical benefits. You see some examples at the very bottom there, and I'll show you some examples of that as well. So again, the goal here is to improve our ESAT. Let's get some of the low priority, non-critical HR cases and drive them towards self-service, right? Let's offload this work. Let have the HR agents work on more critical workflows and cases. The next one, a little bit more complex. This is really around onboarding, right? A lifecycle case. And, I know a lot of customers, and Rue, you may want to comment on this. I've seen, because you mentioned in our discussions, that some customers use lifecycle cases for onboarding. Some customers use regular case, HR case for onboarding, and that's very valid too.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Damien. We see sort of two scenarios, right? The first scenario is I'm just going to use cases and I'm going to assign, different cases to different teams to bring my new employees in, right? So that you might have, instead of having sort of one case, you might have a case for your, compensation team and a case for your payroll team and a case for, other teams, including IT or some of the other teams, right? You're trying to reassign everything to get those teams to control those. But there's not an orchestration around that. It's like a one-off. It happens when it happens, and it's hard to manage for some organizations. But they do it that way, right? It's simpler. Maybe they're not using the Journeys product and they're not doing HR lifecycle events. So that's one method, not necessarily always the preferred method. And then if you have journeys, if you have HR lifecycle events, then you can use this capability and actually assign different tasks to different teams across the organization and orchestrate them and build dependencies around them so that you can't go to the next step until the previous step is done. We know that sometimes, someone wants to jump the gun and it's like, wait, that employee hasn't even finished their background check. We can't give them this information that you want to send them yet. So, HR lifecycle events and the onboarding orchestration is very important. And we see a lot of customers with that product using this, but it's also an area where there can be a lot of inefficiencies, right? Is the facilities team not assigning these new workers, workspaces, or lockers or whatever they need to do? Is security holding up their badges and so on? And then you can also, as we know, as most of us know, you can also do process mining around external vendors. So if you have a vendor doing background checks on a new employee, you can actually track how efficiently they're processing those background checks, which is always very helpful. So yeah, so definitely two ways to do it, and it's always good to be able to build efficiencies in, see where the inefficiencies are, and if you can use AI automation, which Damien will show an example of, then you're just going to be a little more efficient, and you're going to save a lot more money.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Drew. And again, so the intent here is to identify that, yeah, we have evidence of life cycle cases. And the example I'll actually show will be an HR case, but it's the same outcome, to show that, yeah, we have a lot of cases that are taking a long time because the ramp up planning is really inefficient, right? So again, showcasing that, yes, here's the pain. Here's a pain we're seeing in our process, but we have an answer, right? And being able to pipeline this information in a data-driven way into that pipeline of here's an AI agent we should deploy in a factual data-driven methodology is really, really impactful. Again, be able to do this in minutes is really important. The last part we'll end with in the demo is around once we deploy that AI agent for HR workflows, I need to know and understand that analysis, that AI agent is working as effectively as we want, right? So making sure those prompts that, maybe that out of the box isn't giving us exactly what we need to tune it. And that's okay too, right? In fact, we expect that for a lot of our customers to be able to iterate on those out of the box AI agents as well. So as of Zurich, the Zurich release, we can now also have the ability of analyzing the audit logs for our AI agents as well. All right, I'm going to switch into the demo. And all right, you should see my browser. I always like to start in a dashboard. And if we recall earlier on, that conversation usually starts in that dashboard. And this is one of the out-of-the-box HR manager dashboards. And this is one of the luxuries we have within the platform, as a customer, as a process owner, being able to connect the dots even further with process mining. So as I look at a KPI that I care about, this average time to close weekly, it's trending the wrong way. Again, going back to the question, okay, why is that happening? I need to figure out why so I can fix this, right? Figure out where the issue is. Being able to dive into that KPI. And this is, again, you don't have to do this. This is really one of those elegant components of the platform to be able to start, analyzing this data set that we're looking at and run a process analysis against this directly, right? So again, having that continued conversation, which will lead me to the process mining workspace. It'll actually analyze that data set behind that data that is represented in the KPI. Once we get that output, that brings us to the process mining workspace. And this scenario, what we're looking at specifically is a few things: the HR case table, the workflow itself. I've analyzed 6,800 HR cases. We get to see a couple of different things here. There's 37 different variants. What's a variant? A different path to closure, right? Think of it that way from start to finish. 23-day average duration to close an HR case. We also see median duration and standard deviation of 17 days. This tells me I have some variability. I'm not very consistent as I would like to be, right? So, and we can see some good information. Everyone likes to see the process map. I like to start here in our summary and insights. Why? Because we get to see some contextual information as well as the improvement opportunities that were detected based on those detectors I mentioned earlier. So the first thing we see is average time to completion, distribution of records by time to completion. This is really important because, I would love to get this average duration down to, let's say, maybe we have a goal within an organization to get it to 7 days or 14 days. We have a bunch that are actually fall into that bucket, but boy, we have some variability to go all the way out to 92 days. I'd love to understand some of these, right, and figure out why it's taking so long. As we scroll down, we get to see some of those improvement opportunities I mentioned earlier, right? When we're detecting a bunch here, right? We're seeing both those automated as well as rule-based detectors finding some evidence of inefficiency, right? We do put them in different categories. We have four, three are being detected: performance, quality, conformance. We can definitely see the types of records, rework, response time. But as I look down closer at the improvement opportunities, we found a total of actually 23. I have 21 in new, I have 200 in view, and 0 archive. This is just a governance layer that we put into place. And I'll explain why and how we use that in a moment. But from here, I see some evidence. I have response time variance, rework, extreme duration, long reaction time. I have pages of them. And we get to see a couple of things here. These are sorted by total efficiency and records. So the very first one, response time variance. Longer than one day to work in progress from ready, right? Too many of them. So 91% of these fall into that bucket. And this is a rule-based one that I built. This is, hey, when a case goes from ready into work in progress, taking more than a day, right? That shouldn't happen, but it is. It's taking an average actually of 2 weeks for that to happen. And there's 195 years of inefficiency wrapped up in those 6,174 cases. So again, I could use this information to easily prioritize if this is something I want to take action on. right? So I also get to see if this is tied to, and you get to decide what that is, an impacted KPI. So I can connect KPIs that I'm measuring to see this is the why I care. Why do I care about this response time variance? Well, it's impacting my percent of tickets resolved without reassignment, right? So easy way to start connecting the dots right from here. Now, I chose two of these improvement opportunities very specifically, and that's why I put them into under review. You can do that very easily from the get actions. We can visualize and take a look at just these records in the process map. I put them in the review phase for a couple of them. I can also start investigating, right? Using machine learning to give me some of the causality. So for this specific one, response time variance, I could look at the records. I certainly don't want to look at 6,000 records, but I do want to use machine learning to understand what type of records these are using the short description or the description. So if I bring this up, it tells me, well, these are the type of cases. I have 1,400 cases that are medical benefit issues for new employees. Okay, well, that's the one that's taking way too long to get into a work in progress. Shouldn't we have, maybe we can do better there with a self-service or a more automated manner dealing with that, right? So you can get the size as well as quality of the cluster right from here, right? Again, giving me evidence of what type of cases that are fall into this scenario. Let's look at the two use cases that I focused on for my review. The two are this. I want to know when, and this is the first one is a rule-based one where, non-critical HR cases are taking more than a day to get it into, that are completed more than one in one day. Well, and this aligns very clearly to my out-of-the-box non-critical AI agent. I would love to deploy that, but I need to know if there's a real need for it or not, right? And certainly we have 51% of my cases fall into this scenario. The scenario is this. HR cases go from is ready and it's low priority, low or moderate, and it goes from to close complete in longer than one day, right? So these are really impacting my ESAT. It's really, eating into my productivity. There's 154 years of inefficiency wrapped up in these 3,489 records, right? And it's impacting my MTTR, right? Not great. And the second one is slow transition, right? From ready to work in progress. I have 3% of them. It's only 216, but there's still 18 years of inefficiency. This is one I feel, again, this I'm driving toward a hypothesis that this is primarily driven from my ramp up. It's taking too long. So let's dive into one of these. This will bring us to our opportunity details tab, which is the next tab over, for this one improvement opportunity. Now, in this, it will give us more contextual information about the improvement opportunity. We see the number of records, the total inefficiency duration, the total inefficiency duration, that 154 years, the number of variants, how many different paths we have to closure. We also have the capability of using Now Assist to summarize, and that's what you see here, all the background contextual information of this improvement opportunity, right? Some really good information here. We can also see the trends over time, even understand the breakdown. So in this case, interestingly enough, I can see I'm breaking this down by HR service. I have a couple of other options, but this one to me was the interesting one. The biggest HR service was a dress change, right? So wow, shouldn't we, this should be something that it should be an automation, right? Benefits coverage, tuition reimbursement, right? So tons of opportunity here to optimize using an AI agent. And from here, we get to see the process map specifically for this inefficiency, but we can also take and investigate right from here as well. So we can, run our cluster analysis, root cause analysis, and even be able to analyze this directly in the workbench as well. But this is something that I want to get buy-in from the rest of my team, right? And this is where we can collaborate very easily. I can create a note, send a screenshot of this directly from process mining. You can see some examples of this right from here, where I said, hey, Fred Luddy, the talent team needs to take a look at this. Do you agree that this is something we should fix, right? And get that collaboration and understanding that, yes, this is something we need to work on, right? And right from here, we can take action, We can connect into continual improvement management or even automation request where we can recommend and deploy that AI agent right from here. Let's go into that second one. Slow transition. So from this one, from ready to work, I'm going to click into the same one. And right from here, I'm going to see very similar information. Because it's the pattern-based one, you get to see these in red, and we can see that it's taking 4 weeks to get to ready to work in progress. Again, we're going to see those highlights in the using Now Assist to get that contextual information. We can also see that, wow, my hypothesis that this was due to onboarding is correct. All 216 fall in that new hire onboarding for this workflow, right? Really interesting. So I need to know better about this. I feel this is something that is could be helped by that ramp up plan, but I need to know further, right? Again, we can take more information right from here. I want to know more about these cases, and sure enough, I see their onboarding for this new employee. I have my demo data isn't the greatest. Had some fun with Game of Thrones with Jon Stark, but you get to see some from good information of what kind of cases these are. And this validates that they are, in fact, absolutely new hire onboarding. I can also use the root cause analysis, the key contributing factors of what's causing this to go into this scenario. And sure enough, HR service is the number one onboarding. You get to see some of these others as well, right? I want to dive more into this now, right? I would really want to understand where that issue is and validate that yes, this is in fact an onboarding issue. So I'm going to dive into this scenario directly. This will look at not all 6,800. I'm looking at just the 216 cases that fell into that, taking too long to get into that work in progress, right? So we notice again, we find that HR services, they're all new hire onboarding, but I really want to start analyzing this and further. We can use bottleneck analysis to get further information from here as well, right? From draft to ready, yep, it's taking an average of 1 week. From work in progress to inspect, you get to see some good details in terms of the average duration. I love sorting this by total duration to see where I'm leaking time the most. It's that ready to work in progress, right? There is 18 years of time, like we saw earlier, it's taking an average of 4 weeks, right? So we can see the next biggest one is from draft to ready. Now, I need to know why this is happening, right? I can start looking into the first thing I'd love to do is like this 4 weeks really bothers me, right? That's way too long. What's happening there? I can click on this transition to get the full scope of what that transition impact is, right? There's 217 total occurrences. It's taking an average of 4 weeks. My record distribution, right, over time, very few of them are in 4 days. Most of these are taking 2 weeks, right? That's not great. And do we have any repetitions? And we do. We have a few, just one doing it twice. That's not bad, but I really want to know more. And this is where the investigate comes really important. I could look at the records. Looking at 200 records could be helpful, but I certainly want to use the machine learning to really summarize this for me. And work notes in the transitions is something that I highly recommend. This analyzes the unstructured data that lives in work notes, again, to show me like, well, what caused this 4 weeks? I'm sure there's some good information there. And in this case, we've analyzed, again, using Now Assist, 94% of the records were analyzed because we had good work notes there. The very first one, what do we see? Well, we have issues with ramp up plans, right? Getting the information, the training requirements, the role clarifications, right? So this again enabled me as a process owner to say, yes, okay, this validated for me that we've noticed that we have some friction in getting the information I need or the hiring managers or whoever owns this process to build that ramp up plan effectively, right? So again, this answered the question for me. I know that my problem is that ramp up, and I now can deploy that capability very, very easily. Now, there's lots of other opportunities to drive automation within process mining for HR workflows. One other area, this is focused on case. I showed an example earlier of a what we call a multi-dimensional, more complex workflow where it has up and downstream workflows. This is an example of that, where we have the HR lifecycle events case, but I also have the task assigned to it as well. So very similar. I have 9,300 cases. In this scenario, we have our up and downstream tasks for our lifecycle event case. Day one prep, pre-boarding task, week one, day one tasks, right? I need to know where those friction points are. Being able to use our bottleneck analysis to easily start looking at the different transitions for each one of these to figure out where do we have friction. Super simple way to understand and be able to open these up and understand the incoming and outgoing of each one of these to understand where we have those friction points. Lastly, I did want to show you for our AI agents how they're deployed as well. So in this scenario, instead of looking at the workflow, we're actually going to analyze the AI agents directly. So as I mentioned earlier in the Zurich release, we have the ability to analyze those AI agents. In this case, the velocity and quality is also equally important. The measurement is a little different. Instead of, minutes, hours, days, now we're talking seconds. And what we look for are things like, rework and, long resolution time, ping pong between different elements within an AI agent to make sure that they're operating effectively. So we can do the same thing here. I notice I have some examples of where, detecting misbehaving opportunities for an AI agent. We can easily start looking at how these different workflows are operating as well. You notice I have a couple of different deployed: predict service and transfer HR cases, resolve critical HR cases, as well as the non-critical that we just mentioned earlier. Right. So very easy way to understand, well, my average duration for this is 1 second. I have 16 different variants. Use the same tools and approach with bottleneck analysis, be able to understand where do we have friction? Where are we missing? Where we have, where are we leaking time overall between the different transitions between the different tools and agents? Let's open this up a little bit more. And we can see certain scenarios, like I noticed this one get user input unrefined, where it's coming back 24 times, it's adding an additional 18 seconds. That's potentially an issue. And I see one here for organized general knowledge where it's looping back 13 times, taking an additional 5 seconds. So it's asking for information repetitively, probably unnecessarily, or maybe a prompt that could be adjusted to deal with this. Or perhaps we don't have the knowledge base we're looking for. So some great examples there to provide that capability. Now, one other thing I did want to show, once we deployed that AI agent, are we effective? We looked at the AI agent itself, but I also want to look at the process itself as, before and after. So we have a really easy way to understand the before and after within process mining. We do have a compare feature. You can see that here, where we can go back in time. I'm going to show an example of between before and after, and we can do that very effectively. So I'm going to choose my filter before change, and I will choose my after. After change. And we notice we have 3,700 before, we have 3,100 after. All right, well, that's good information. The map doesn't look terribly different, but we do have very elegantly is this comparison statistics here. This gives me an easy way to understand that our velocity and quality improve. So we closed 665 less records. Our variance went down. That means we're more consistent. Our average duration got worse, right? So that's not great, right? Maybe we need to iterate. Our touch points went down. So that's good. That means we have less people touching it. So maybe it's further automated, but maybe we need to improve on the automation, right? So again, this gives me a good way to understand, did we get better, right? Do we need to iterate? All right. One thing I did want to end with is our ability to take that process map that we saw earlier and that dashboard, right? That initial dashboard we looked at, taking process mining and being able to take that and put it into the actual dashboard itself, right? Again, democratizing that capability that we want to have that continued conversation. So as I'm looking at this KPI and understands like, well, why is this getting worse? Well, I notice it's taking, 2 weeks to get to day one, check. It's taking us 2 weeks to get into work in progress, being able to analyze, being able to show the records, generate work note analysis, that really rich information of understanding what's taking so long. Are the agents sharing information that could give me the evidence of why it's taking 2 weeks right from here? So again, the whole intent here is to arm the teams, the process owners, to where they should improve in a data-driven way. So this could be an iterative loop that can happen over time. All right, I know we're running out of time. I wanted to give some time for Q&A. Do we have anything that we're waiting upon? Rue, Dan?
There's a number of questions that have come in. We've answered them in the Q&A, but some of them are good to kind of get out there, I think, for everyone to hear. There was just one, and this is probably a good one for you to take with your HR experience. There was just one question around kind of PII and kind of how we make sure that admins and developers don't see that information as they're going through process mining. I think that's a good one for you to address, just to kind of
Uh,
ease the concerns for everyone here.
Absolutely, Dan. Thanks. So HRSD is a scoped app. And essentially what a scoped app is sort of like it's sort of an isolation methodology to ensure that there's a unique set of security around HR. And the reason we do that is simply because we don't want platform admins and our system admins, as we call them, or developers to be able to access sensitive HR data for our employees, right? That could be anything from an employee relations issue to what's the president's of the company's compensation, right? There needs to be some kind of controls around that, and so we use an HRSD scoped app in order to create a unique security structure. And then within HR, you can also add security for your different, we call them COEs, centers of expertise like benefits or compensation or payroll, where we want to keep that data only within a certain team. And then even beyond that, let's say you have the employee relations capability, you want to make sure that certain cases are only available to certain employee relations agents. And so there's security at every one of those levels, protecting the employee's PII.
Thank you, Rue. Yeah, I mean, we have lots of HR customers, and I don't think we would if we didn't have a way to address these things.
Yeah.
Another one that came in, and I'll leave it to Damien or Rue for you guys to take. And just kind of there was some questions, general questions around like how mature do you need to be, how much data you need, like what does it take to kind of get started with this solution?
Yeah, great question. So the great thing about process mining, you just need as little as one record to test this with, right? That's a minimum, but certainly, I would say you don't need a lot of data. In fact, I'll say this, and I have lots of customers who are perhaps new to, let's say HRSD, and it's like, hey, we just deployed this last month. Do we have to wait a year? The answer is no. In fact, I would say the opposite. Since you just deployed HR, it's a great time to use process mining to validate your deployment. Is it working the way you expect? So you could use this during a pilot, the first day you deployed, or during tests. Great way to validate your workflows and your process to ensure that you can iterate very easily and quickly for a given outcome.
Yeah, and I think I just say on top of that, Damon, you showed the before and after capability. The compare capability. And I've used that with a lot of our customers who say, hey, we just deployed this new HR service and we have a process around it and we're going to test it. They find issues, right? They find
Yeah.
opportunities to improve. And then they go back, a week later or a month later and they go, okay, how much time have we saved based on,
Yeah.
the additional opportunities we've implemented around that process. So yeah, I think there's a great opportunity there as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Rue.
Damien, just I don't know if you have slides with additional information after
Yeah, I
that you
do.
want to make sure you cover,
Yep.
or you want to
Yep.
get more questions. Perfect. This
Yep.
will help answer one of or a question that's coming a few times, which is
Yeah.
like, hey, how hard is it to get started with this solution?
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. So to follow up with everyone, because I think one of the questions, hey, how long do we have to wait, or how much data do we need? All of everyone on this call today, if you're on Yokohama release or later, you have the ability of testing this in your production instance today, right? We do have evaluation projects, and one of which is for HR case. What this allows you to do is to test the last week's or analyze the last week's worth of HR cases up to 3,600 records. We have in that project, it's a curated project, it has improvement detectors already built in. All you have to do is hit the three dots and hit run, right? And it'll analyze those 3,600 records and give you some opportunity and visibility of how your HR cases are actually working and also expose improvement opportunities. Again, this is meant to be an example in your own data, very easily exposing how process mining can help, right? So again, very easy way to address that. We do have some content out there to help leverage and how you can use these evaluation projects, even though they're structured and limited to 3,600 records. And a fully licensed, you won't be limited to 3,600, and you can change and create your own projects. But even with this 3,600, you can help identify where AI agents could be used, or you see some examples of our multi-hop or identify idle time. We have the techniques out there and recorded for you, so you can use that to drive improvement as well, or at least provide some examples of that as well. On top of that, we have a ton of additional resources, on-demand training with fundamentals and advanced class available for you within ServiceNow University. We have a very rich and dynamic community forum. We post our ServiceNow Process Now Academy. We have a ton of sessions out there that are recorded for you as reference. We have a great getting started guide as well, right? So a lot of great use cases. We have office hours once a month to help answer questions that you all may have as you mature in your journey of process mining. Again, so we do have these accreditations for process mining for fundamentals. We also have that advanced class as well. What's great about them, they will walk you through not only the content, but also give you the ability of having an instance to test this around as well. Some information around customer success. There's some QR codes if you want to like to learn more about ServiceNow Impact, training, certification, as well as expert services. These are available for you as well. Any last questions out there that we have not answered?
Hey, Damien, I just want to say I saw something come up in the chat around the cleanliness of data. And the inability to use process mining effectively because the data is dirty. I actually, I actually talked to a customer who had this similar issue, and they started using process mining just to get their data straight, right? Just to kind of clean up everything, and identify what needed to be cleaned up. So they started there, and then they got some standardization, and they were able to then apply sort of
No.
the next steps of process mining to become more efficient. So the
Yeah.
first thing was just understanding what their situation was.
I love that. And I've seen process mining used in a couple of different ways. One of which is, hey, we need to address a specific outcome, right? And we for 2026. The other one could be more strategic or hey, I don't know what I don't know about my environment or my workflow. I'd love to understand where those friction points are. Where are we doing well? Where are we not? And that's okay too.
Yes, I think just to double down on that, like for many problems or opportunities, depending on your point of view, visibility is the first step, right?
Yep.
And that's what process mining provides.
Awesome. Well, I think we're at time. I did want to put up the upcoming sessions we will be having in the Process Mining Academy, as well as the exchange, which will be in the next one for us will be March 24th. But thank you everyone for joining.